It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, March 21st. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that really wants to talk about this Egor Zamula call up in the context of everything that's going on with the Flyers and the Phantoms right now.
This is officially Anger Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to get into that. And we are also going to preview tonight's matchup for the Flyers against the Florida Panthers, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with the brilliant Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where you'll find out about our latest episodes and Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. We do a mailbag almost every week, so get us those Flyers questions and we will do our best to answer. Locked On Flyers is free and available anywhere you listen to podcasts, so subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. Okay, Russ, I sense from that intro that you have a lot of things to say about this. And, it doesn't seem like a major thing just calling up Egor Zamula. We knew that they were going to be managing these remaining call-ups. I think now we're down to 2 remaining.
Keyword is remaining, yeah.
Yeah, for the season. Egor Zamula gets the second one. Tyson Foerster got the first one. And, it's Phantoms Tuesday, and we have a lot to talk about with the Phantoms as well. And this all connects everything that we've been talking about together because it really took me by surprise that Zamula was getting this call up. And Tortorella said, he feels like he's ready to be looked at. He's got ability to see the ice and has proven it. And I don't see that that's necessarily wrong. I just see maybe at least one other guy in Lehigh Valley based on everything we've seen so far that maybe should have gotten the opportunity instead and maybe will down the road, next week or the week after. But
Only if there's an emergency. There's only 2 more. Otherwise, that's it.
Right. Well, we're going to get into who might get those other 2. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised to see Zamula be the one to get the call up.
Look, there was a time where you could have called up Zamula where you didn't have to worry about how many call-ups there were, and he deserved it. Right now, I don't think he deserves it. And he's gotten a lot of time with the Flyers. He has. So more than most that we're going to talk about. So, I mean, you chose now to do it. I mean, it should have been done like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And then it would have been fine for this year. I get it. But not now. Not now at this time. There's another guy playing better. And I understand that guy has played with the team too. But no, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, that other guy's Ronnie Adderd, and we're going to talk about him for sure. But I do want to say that with Zamula, I think that he has gotten better over the course of this season at some things. I think his vision is a little better. I would say his puck distribution on the power play has gotten better. Now, the Phantoms power play is a disaster. That is no question about that. But I don't think it's necessarily Zamula's fault.
No.
I think he's really good at the distribution. I think he's really good at keeping the puck in the zone when things get out of whack with it. But I just don't think at 5-on-5 he's contributing significantly in a way that would warrant this call up. And, he's got 16 points so far this season, 1 goal, 15 assists. I just don't necessarily think the production is there and he's contributing to the offense enough in a way that Torts is trying to emphasize now. Like, it just doesn't match up for me.
No, it doesn't line up. But again, in his mind, it does. So he's trying to piece in these guys into his lineup instead of trying to bring up the guy maybe more deserving And yeah, if you have to figure it out and it may take a day to figure out where he fits in your lineup, then so be it. But it almost seems like he's just taking the easy path here. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think again we've been harping on emphasizing the Phantoms and trying to get them into the playoffs and in a good
Mhm.
position in the playoffs. And you look at the schedule, and Torts had this incorrect, by the way, in his what he talked about in practice in terms of when the next Phantoms game was. He said it was Sunday. It's actually Saturday.
Right.
So, this is really like two Flyers games for him and for Tyson Foerster to play out. And then, according to Torts, the two of them would likely go down at that point. And,
Yeah, but
you
Forster's
know,
already been around for the loss.
right, right. And so
What are we
I
going
don't,
to get into?
yeah. So Forster being up this long and going down, then, it makes sense to send Forster back down after these two Flyers games. And if Zamula only gets 2 games in this and goes back down, like, I don't know what that does necessarily, especially if you're trying to work on the offensive side of things for the Flyers and get the young guys involved and playing together like they have been doing, and to some degree with some success. I This piece now just doesn't fit any of that.
No, it doesn't. And it's quite frankly a little baffling. But again, this is where I've told you, and will still say that until Danny Briere either has the GM title or doesn't have the interim anymore, and there's a different GM, that John is going to do what John wants to do.
Yeah. The other thing too is that if you looked in practice yesterday, Zamula was there in practice. He was paired
Mhm.
with Justin Braun, right? So why is he paired with Justin Braun if
Makes
they're
no
going to put him
sense.
in, right?
It
Like,
makes no sense. It's like you're pairing him with somebody who isn't even playing lately.
mhm. At least in practice, like pair him up with Cam York,
Right.
pair him up with Tony D'Angelo even. So, I think that there's just a lot of disconnect here with the organization. And I know things are in turmoil. Turmoil is maybe the wrong word, but things are not exactly stable right now with the regime change. And so, I understand there's going to be some miscommunication here, but like none of this is making sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And again, I would like to think that there's this, good conduit going between the Flyers and the Phantoms, but there just isn't. Yeah, it's great that it gets reported on Twitter that Danny Briere is, in the building in Lehigh, and now he's a GM there, and he's been there. But what's been done there? There's not been much. There hasn't been a GM there for a while. No, there's no official GM for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And if Danny's going to tell us a week ago that things were hectic with just taking on the regular job, well, now you're taking on this job too. And so, again, they're not going to get the kind of attention they should be getting right now. And again, is Ian LePerrier really going to tell John Tortorella, I can't lose this player? No. And then the question is, would Danny Briere stop a transaction that John wanted? Probably not.
Probably not. Speaking of those transactions, as far as the remaining 2 call-ups, you and I have both just mentioned that Ronnie Adderd, well, we'd like to see him get
Yeah.
another look at the NHL level. He's a guy that really seems to thrive at the NHL level and took steps forward in the number of games he had last year. And I think,
Hmm.
he deserves a look. And then the other player that has been sort of hinted at that there will be a call up is Bobby Brink. We can't say this for sure, but Flyer social media is highlighting
Hmm.
him. He's been playing pretty well. 8 goals, 19 points in 31 games.
I mean,
So
is that well? He had a goal yesterday. I get it. Or 2 days ago now. Is that well though? No, not for the kind of standard that should be set for Bobby Brink. So, and we can't say that, January is when he came back. He's had enough time to, be back. And so bringing him up to the NHL level, sure. He's a guy that could score a little bit. he might put in a goal or two, but that still doesn't make him ready for the NHL. He's really almost, he has to be dominating the AHL, and he's not.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, I'm looking at the roster, and I'm not sure that there's anybody else that I would want to call up at this point from an offensive perspective here that we haven't already seen.
Mhm.
Maybe they sent Denoye back down too soon. Um, again, those were emergency recalls, so I understand that
Right.
situation, but at the same time, I think everybody that's down in Lehigh Valley should stay down in Lehigh Valley, if we're being honest. Um, that Bobby Brink is the only one that you maybe could justify, but I don't think it's necessary. And
I
I
don't think
would,
it's necessary. Like, look, if you want to give him his
yeah,
cup of coffee and push him in front of the fan base, okay. But if you're going to really pump him up to the point where you're saying he's having a great season, no, can't buy that.
yeah. Don't think so either. So yeah, there's been a lot going on in the back and forth between the Flyers and the Phantoms here, and it has had an effect on the Phantoms. We talked about that with the Tyson Foerster call up and
Hmm.
how risky it was, and despite everything Torts was saying, had a significant effect.
Hmm.
And we're going to get to the Phantoms weekend that did not go great. To say the least, and where that puts them as far as the playoffs. We're going to do that coming up next.
We're in the home stretch of the NBA season, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Maybe bet on the Sixers. We talked about them. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, Russ. So, looking at the weekend that just passed, did not go great. They did not have Tyson Forster for the weekend, and they lost all three games. And they were very important games against tough opponents. Hershey, they played twice, lost both of those games. And despite Garrett Wilson getting a hat trick on Wednesday, the Phantoms still lost 6-3 in that one.
Tough.
Um, Lost Friday 2-1 and lost to Wilkes-Barre Scranton on Sunday 5-2. And so they had a day off in between each of those games. It wasn't like these were three games in a row.
Right.
Ian LePerriere mentioned specifically that, especially in the Wednesday game, that the Phantoms seemed to be playing like they were riding on the momentum of their 5-game winning streak and like really weren't putting in enough effort there and kind of coasting through that game, and it bit them. And they had to turn things around. Did not happen. Um I think that some roster churn, like with not having Tyson Forster available on that top line, probably had a big effect
There's no
on the
question.
team.
There's no question. I mean, again, I'm happy Forster got his NHL time and happy he got his first
Oh,
goal.
yeah.
Those things are good too. But the yin and the yang of it right now is, at this point, while he's gotten those, what's the point of giving him these other NHL games where he might be able to save the Phantom season? That's what you have to weigh this as. Again, the Flyers season's going nowhere. So now we're at a point where if there could be a longer Phantom season and a really good playoff run, which may mean these next games, it could. Um, that's, to me, weighs more than two more NHL games. Like, that's just the way I would look at it organizationally. But they're looking at it differently. So what can I say?
Yeah, so right now, the Phantoms are in 5th place in the division. They're now 3 points behind Springfield, who have a game in hand on the Phantoms right now. And ostensibly, these are the two teams that are going to match up with each other anyway going into the playoffs. But if you look at the top 3 teams in the division, they all have 3+ winning streaks going and have stepped it up a notch in the home stretch of the season. And you cannot have a losing weekend like this if you're going to expect to even going into the playoffs, like assuming the Phantoms make the playoffs.
Right, I mean, there is a chance they don't make it still. That's my point.
Yeah, there's a chance they don't make it, but also even, scraping by into it is different than going into the playoffs with a lot of momentum and positive play. And that's where the problem is, because it's not even just that, they're losing hard fought games. And I guess, Friday was that game for sure. But I think that it's, getting outplayed in a lot of areas of the game. Specifically, we're going to bring up special teams again because we always have to. And, Tyson Foerster, yeah, power play was really bad. Remember when they were second in the league? Now they're 11th overall.
Seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, so they had 0 power play goals for the weekend. 11 chances. That is not going to get you anywhere or keep you
And
in
Bobby
these
Brink
games.
plays on that power play, right?
Yep.
Okay.
He does. And, the penalty kill at least was solid. They only allowed 1 power play goal for the weekend. So, got to give them credit where credit is
That's
due
good PK.
there.
That is.
Yeah. So I think that there's just a lot of missing pieces on this Phantoms team that I think to some degree we're starting to come together in a better way with a solid roster of these top
Yeah, there's no
prospects.
question there was a gelling taking place that has stalled.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the monkeying with the roster has been a part of that.
Yeah, and they could tell us that, hey, don't worry, Foerster will be down there for a couple more games this week and the rest of the season. But every time you insert and put guys back in, it changes the lineup. It just does. That is a fact, human nature and everything else. And then the Phantoms have guys there that they're not even playing, and we don't know why.
Yeah, it's true. And, we still don't know yet when Emil Andre's first game is going to be. We haven't seen the other new guy, Will Smolik, yet. And, again, trying.
You think with the extra day and then Sunday that you would have seen Andre. I would have put him in. I would have made sure I put him in. Even if I went with 11-7, Rachel, and when do I ever do that? I might have done that.
Yeah, I would not have thought you would have said that.
Right?
But I do think that, if you're going to already have all that roster churn because you're sending guys up and bringing other guys down, you might as well add another one in, right?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's either keep everything consistent and gelling the way they were, or decide you're going to prioritize the Flyers. And which is a valid way to look at it. If you want to throw away the remainder of this Phantom season and take away those opportunities for guys to learn what it's like to go on a playoff run, that is a choice. I don't necessarily think it's the right choice, but it's a choice and it's a strategy. I don't disagree with that. But just say that's what you're doing and don't give lip
say the
service.
Phantom season's important and then,
Yeah.
show us otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's all I'm trying to say here is that, I would emphasize the Phantom season here. I think that's the better choice. And that it doesn't seem like from what they're doing, that's what's happening here. That's what they're saying, but it doesn't, bear fruit when you look at it.
Exactly.
So it's the other part of this weekend that was not great, other than all of the losing, is that they lost Cooper Maroney in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton game. He was taken off the ice after hitting his head. He was tripped. Not great officiating in that one, I will say. And so, when you have guys who are the AHL level players who are stepping up in this vacuum and actually playing well, I mentioned Garrett Wilson's hat trick. Cooper Maroney has been playing really well. Brooks has been playing really well. We've been talking about a couple of these guys, especially. Last week we focused on those AHL guys to then okay, now we're missing one. So you're going to call up Bobby Brink when Cooper Marodi's out? Like, I don't think you should.
They feel like
You
doing
know?
it, Rachel. They're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what they keep saying. But
That's why I always
it
say, just watch what they do. Don't listen to what's being said all the time.
I do want to talk about Ronnie Adderd a little bit more
Mhm.
and Elliot Dennehy a little bit more. Um, Ronnie Adderd is second highest on the Phantoms for rookie points as a defenseman. And he has really been tributing on the defensive side of things and the offensive side of things.
Can't
And
get on that
he
top pairing, though. Can't.
not right now,
Might be
I guess.
now. Now he might be.
Yeah, he might be, but he's just really getting smarter and smarter and smarter about when to step up and when not to. He's getting back when he needs to, and being a part of the team offense in a way with such a high level of confidence. I would say the one thing he needs to work on is staying out of the box. I think
Yes.
sometimes he gets a little desperate and really doesn't need to trip that guy, really doesn't need to hold that guy, and then he
Right.
winds up in the penalty
Look, he
box.
wants to
So,
play physical sometimes. I get it.
yeah.
He's a bigger guy. But his offense is really good. His puck moving is really good. He's terrific on the power play.
Mhm.
Again, he'll be way better. Zamula's never going to sniff the power play with the Flyers, but Adderd could. Like,
Yeah,
that's the
I think
point.
so too. Yeah, and you look at Elliot Dennehy, he was out Wednesday due to illness, but came back later in the weekend. He's still tied for the top spot in points on the team despite the call up and being out with illness, so that says a lot. He's 13th in points and 6th in goals overall for rookies in the AHL, not the Phantoms, but the AHL overall.
Right.
That's a pretty solid season
Oh,
there.
yeah. He's
So,
put in a really good year. He's deserved everything he's gotten. He's improved in his all around game. Look, there's still some things. His skating's always been good. His forechecking's always been good. When he gets to the next level, he's going to have to figure out how to be a consistent scorer because he's not going to necessarily be able to be a grind guy. So, and Flyers fans hate this because it probably turns him into a third liner. But listen, I can't help it if guys don't develop beyond that or guys aren't drafted that don't have a ceiling above that. Like, that's just right now where we are with a lot of players in this organization.
yeah. So, a lot of questions remain for the Phantoms for the remainder of the season. They've got only 2 games this upcoming weekend to try and turn things around. They've got a Saturday game versus Wilkes-Barre Scranton, a Sunday game versus Hershey. So same teams that we just saw this past weekend who they lost to. They absolutely have to win both of those games, not only to maintain playoff positioning, but also to show that they can turn it around. And
Right.
this is like indicative of a series against a
And
team.
we
And
also should say, while we were talking about the ups and downs with Sam Urson, it was really showing this weekend.
yep, yep, and that's the kind of thing a young goaltender will go through. And the Phantoms have a philosophy of putting the guy back in until he gets back on the horse. And rough weekend for Sam Urson on that
Yeah.
front. All right, we will be coming back to switch back to the Flyers a little bit and preview tonight's matchup against the Florida Panthers and do a college hockey check-in. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, you gotta try a Built Bar. My goal has been to eat a little healthier this year, and if you're like me and don't want to compromise taste, then I've got just the thing for you. With Built Bar, healthy is actually tasty. And what makes them so good? They're covered in 100% real chocolate, come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And on the healthy side, they've only got 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar, but 17 grams of protein. And now you don't have to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at built.com. Now you can get them right away at your local Walmart or if you're a member of Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, go to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. They've got 4 bar boxes of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with brownie, batter, and churro. You can thank me later. All right, Russ. So the Flyers versus Florida Panthers. This is going to be a fascinating game because the Florida Panthers have been on a bit of a tear recently, trying to claw their way, and that was a pun intended, back into a wild card position. Right now, they're 1 point behind the Pittsburgh Penguins, 3 points behind the Isles, who are in the first wild card spot, but they've got 2 games in hand on those New York Islanders. So
And they've
there's
got
a
more home games too, so it's trending up for them.
Yeah, there's a very real possibility the Florida Panthers will, in fact, make the playoffs. I would say, especially because the mixed bag that is Pittsburgh right now leaves
Today
a
it
lot
doesn't
to.
look good. Tomorrow, who knows with that team?
Exactly. I don't even know what to make of that team right now.
You know?
But the Panthers played the Red Wings last night. We don't know the outcome of that game as of recording, but the Flyers game will be the second half of a back-to-back road trip for them. Prior to that, they won against the really good New Jersey Devils 4-2. They've won 5 of their last 6, 7-2-1 in their last 10. They had that incredible 9-5 victory against Montreal. That was a crazy game.
Yeah.
So I think that the motivation levels are as high as they've ever been for the Florida Panthers right now.
Yeah, this could be a game. Now they don't have the same defense as Carolina, but they have the same speed and the ability to cycle. Matthew Tkachuk, good luck getting him off the puck. Good luck getting him out of the crease when he wants to be around there. Sam Reinhart always seems to do well against the Flyers. He doesn't play a ton against them, but I think he's always had good games. Barkov, super smart. You got to watch him on shorthanded opportunities, power play. Verhaeghe definitely does well against the Flyers. Like, he's become a really good player. Like, there's a lot of firepower on this team. So what are the Flyers going to do to slow that down? Because their puck possession was awful against Carolina. It was just awful.
Yep.
They're going to have to do something to try and slow it down, because just looking for stretch passes and those kinds of opportunities, yeah, you'll find a couple a game, but that's not going to be enough to give you that extra offense that, Tortorella is looking for.
Yeah. The one upside, I think, is that the Panthers are not great in a couple of key areas that the Flyers could maybe take advantage of. And one of the main reasons why they've been able to win so much is scoring a lot of goals. So that means their defense and their goaltending isn't great. Like I said, they won against Montreal 9-5, so they scored 9 goals, but they allowed 5. So if the Flyers can put together a decent defensive game and actually score some goals, there's some opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, they'll face either Bob or Alex Lyons, so they'll face a former Flyer either way. The interesting thing is that with Bob, he always plays better when he's the guy and there's nobody else in sight. And unfortunately, with Spencer Knight being in the NHL program, Bob has done much better since then. And so he's really one of the big reasons they're driving, besides that offense. But yeah, they're definitely susceptible to giving up goals. But again, when are you going to score them? Are you going to be down 2-0 and then decide to score? Like those,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's going to matter when you get these goals.
Along those lines, the Panthers' goals against per game is right next to the Flyers in the stats. Panthers are actually worse on that. They're not great on faceoffs overall either. They have a couple of good guys at it, but not overall. Their PK is pretty much on par with the Flyers as well. So, they're not as together a team as they were last year. That's for sure. And so I think that this is a game for the Flyers where they really have to show, even if they don't come out as winners in this one, they really have to take opportunities to show what they can do and to figure out ways to match up against this team. This is a really good learning experience.
Yeah, no question.
Game.
It's a learning experience. I mean, they're 7-2-1, the Panthers. in their last 10. They're 2-1 in the shootout. I know no Flyers fan wants this to go to a shootout.
No loser points. That's the nemesis of the week.
I know. And the Flyers are running at 2-6-2. I mean, this is one where we're going to have to see something different. And again, just because you're not in it right now and you're not going to be in it this year, and because you've decided not to tank, I'm going to give analysis to say, then let's see something different from the coaching staff. Let's see something different on the power play. Let's see something, like put somebody else different in the power play. I know they put Foerster in there. That's fine. That's obvious. But do something else. Like there's just, they're like the bubbles are coming up from the ship when it comes down to certain things. They do show you flashes. No question about it. We get some good flashes, but right now it's almost like you can't even say anything about the coaching staff because everybody just says, well, there's no good personnel and the team stinks and whatever. But, fact is they're still out there getting paid to coach and you still expect some sort of results. And the results lately have been awful.
That is true. So hopefully the Flyers can turn things around and at least show more of the upside of what they can do right now. For our Flyers fun thing to wrap up the show, we're going to check in with college hockey and the Frozen Four tournament. Boston University won the Hockey East tournament. Devin Kaplan got the game tying goal to get them back in it to win that tournament. It was a really great goal. We'll put a link to that one in the show notes. And so now the Frozen Four tournament is set. And for Flyers prospects, we have the aforementioned BU with Devin Kaplan and Jay O'Brien, TBD.
Yeah, he played his 100th game. I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
That's a lot
So
of games.
They're in the Manchester, New Hampshire regional, and then Bryce Brzezinski, who plays for Minnesota, they're the 1 seed in the North Dakota regional, and that's your Flyers prospects. Allentown of the Phantoms are hosting the one of the regionals in the tournament, so you can go see Michigan against Colgate and Penn State.
I'll do just that.
Yeah, and Penn State versus Michigan Tech in Allentown for the first weekend of the tournament.
Don't kid yourself. The Flyers will be there scouting because they'll be potential college free agents, and you have to look at them.
Yep, exactly. So a lot of exciting things in college hockey right now. Also, congrats to the Wisconsin Badgers for winning the Women's Frozen Four.
Yeah, that was big.
It was. All right, that will do it for today's show. We will be back again tomorrow. We're going to recap that game against the Panthers. We'll have our mailbag and more. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in your questions via Twitter at LockedOnFlyers, or you can email us at LockedOnFlyers@gmail.com. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. Now make your second listen Game to Game NHL. It's every moment, every top performance, and every result. Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. It's on the Locked On NHL feed anywhere you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.